Recording in progress.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the select board meeting on Monday, October 27th. As always, we'll start, if you're able, to stand and pledge for allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the accounts payable warrant. Accounts payable AP warrant number 11, the amount of $481,185.03.
I move that we approve fiscal year 26 AP warrant number 11 in the amount of $481,185.03.
I second that motion. It's been moved and seconded to approve AP warrant number 11, the amount of $481,185.03. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Next item on the agenda is payroll journal number 170 in the amount of $10,677.17.
I move that we approve payroll journal number 170 in the amount of $10,677.17.
Second that motion. It's been moved and seconded to approve payroll journal number 170, the amount of $10,677.17. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is minutes of previous meeting. This is the minutes of October 14th, 2025, or it was a regular meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes of October 14th, 2025.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of October 14th, 2025. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Minutes carry. Thank you for doing those, Becky. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Non-agenda items. This is an opportunity for any resident of the town of Pownell to step forward and be heard by the select board. Is there anybody present that would like to be heard by the select board at this time? Okay, next item on the agenda is department head reports. All department head reports can be viewed on the website. You just click on the department and the report is right there. Is there any questions for our department head who is present right now? That would be Becky. Seeing none, any report out from the select board at this point in time? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Fiscal year 25 audit. We had homework to look at the audit and see if we had any questions that we wanted to talk about, any discrepancies and discretions, any like potential red flags. It was your first audit, George. How was that? Happy reading?
Oh yeah, it was a blast of reading. So, but I didn't really come up with anything that jumped my mind to ask about. So,
Kate?
Not a CPA, but it seems pretty straightforward to me.
I think it's a testament to some good work in the office that we have so few adjustments and amendments. Good job. I think we can vote to approve this and
I try to keep good notes for her too when she comes in to make it a little simpler on her end.
so sometimes the work at the board, trying to make sure that we follow auditor's recommendations, make it easier at this point in time. Would you like to vote to accept this?
Move that we approve the independent auditor's report and financial statements drafted June 30th, 2025.
second it.
So it's been moved and seconded to accept the independent auditor's report, June 30th. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Great. Good work, Becky. That's a lot of work there.
Thank you.
A lot of fighting through trio. Next item on the agenda is the AI policy draft. So that was also homework. Becky, have you done anything more to this or are you waiting for suggestions?
Yes, no, I've got a couple more updates. So on page 2, I did do a couple of red edits. I really got thinking about under section 1, letter C, personal use of the town provided GII tools is prohibited. And I kind of struck the during work hours. And this is something that still, needs to go through attorney review, but the sentence didn't settle well to me when I initially put it in there, and the more I thought about it, I thought, well, let's edit it and see what that looks like. I also added in a section D because things like Grammarly, Otter, and Microsoft Office have spell checks, and that could be considered AI in a sense. And I do have some staff that use Grammarly regularly to just make sure the grammar is correct in what they're drafting and that it looks professional. So I added that language. And then E, I'm still contemplating a section on embedded AI use because it's in everything. You open Google and Gemini's flashing on the top right, use me, use me. Adobe, which is a PDF reader that I use to edit our PDF files, now has an AI assistant in it. So I think we're going to probably need attorney language. So those were some edits. You gave me some homework to call MMA. So I did talk with MMA. They do not have an official statement yet on a policy. They are not requiring a policy for the insurance, but their stance is policies just give you the outline that you need to, conduct your everyday operations. So policies are good. I had a very brief conversation with our town attorney and asked him if he felt a standalone policy or just an excerpt in the personnel policy would be sufficient. And he said standalone policy with AI. There are 2 attorneys on staff right now that are the go-tos that are writing for several towns. And he was part of the oversight of the gray policy, which is the one I modeled after. So he's very familiar with the one that I've been working on. So that was what I got done over the last couple of weeks on this.
Kate, anything to speak to the subject?
So there's good wording and specific wording in the definitions part. And I feel like it's a good distinction between AI and GAI, but in the rest of the policy, it's mostly GAI, not a whole lot of distinction between the two. And I don't know if that's even relevant, that's written that way.
That was my focus because, GAI, the generative artificial intelligence, is really the focus of the policy because that's where we could say, write me an outline and checklist on blah, 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 and it's going to do the work kind of thing versus us kind of drafting that and then spell checking. So that's kind of been how the procedure have been in offices now is we do the work and then we proof it. And GAI, generative artificial intelligence, which is coming on, is kind of like, oh, let me just type this in and let it do the work for me. So that was really the focus of the policy.
And the Microsoft Copilot is GAI.
That is GAI, yes.
George?
Nope, it looks good to me. I feel that we do need this because it's one of those things that with the generative side of it, if we don't make sure that we're crossing our T's, dotting our I's, and making sure what it's generating is accurate, we could wind up with liability on the town's behalf because of something that we asked a computer to do for us. But again, my experience with AI is very limited. It's something that I generally don't see the point of in a professional work environment. But I know like my wife uses it quite a bit at work, so there's pros and cons.
So Becky, if you were to be able to state in 25 words or less why we need this policy, what would you say?
Well, I think it's important for the residents to know if we're using it when we're doing communications. We want to make sure that we're not infringing on any copyright. We're wanting to protect our data. And making sure that we're not, I know I'm going to go over 25 words, that we're not putting in sensitive data, and Microsoft Copilot protects us from that because we can keep it a closed loop and it only learns from what we feed into it. I think it's just important that we have some guidelines around its use to make sure that we are still using our own professional skills and using this tool to help us with our work. It's really my goals.
So does anybody on the board have any questions? Because it's really important. So if we're gonna have a policy, to know why the policy is going to be put in place. So it's really it's a CYA, but it's also a call to know that the people that we've hired, we trust that their wisdom and experience is more salient than any kind of generative AI tool that comes with a lot of baggage in its algorithms that are not necessarily distinct to Pound. And we could, I think, as a high school teacher who assigns homework, tell you that it's a really slippery slope. Not that any employees here would be like a 16-year-old. It's very easy to just type it in and then say, this is great, but it's not, you're not doing the job. You're not completing the assignment. All right, so I think I'm not quite sure about, about embedded AI. I'm not sure that needs to be part of this first take of the policy.
Okay.
I would say, since there won't be any, if there's something embedded in Google, we're not going to get sued for copyright on that unless we call it our own. So I would suggest that we send this off to our attorney. Oh, yeah, hold on. Send this off to the attorney and just let him shake it out. Because I'm sure their law office has a policy as well.
Yes, they have 2 attorneys right now that are working on these policies individually with towns, so they probably have a sample, but like I said, Ben actually worked with Gray on this one, so he's very familiar with this policy.
That sounds good to me.
George?
Yeah, sounds good to me as well.
Yeah.
Well, first, I want to say Becky did a great job researching and producing the draft document. She's very skilled, one-arm paper hanger, and she's got a million things going on. The first page is an image that I had on my wall at work for many years. A colleague kept it for the wall on his office when I left security. For this AI policy, what problem are we trying to solve? Perhaps it's protecting privacy and health-related data, such as HIPAA. However, our Microsoft 365 and Copilot AI could be made HIPAA compliant. I've helped configure systems to be HIPAA compliant and have audited systems for HIPAA compliance. Our configuration of Office 365 is not HIPAA compliant and would likely be very expensive as unnecessary to configure it for HIPAA compliance. 2, maybe we think that Copilot's AI is more secure. However, if we ask Copilot, what is the least secure operating system, even it will tell you that Microsoft's Windows operating system on which Copilot runs is the least secure, and it recommends Chrome OS, Linux, and Mac OS as alternatives. Auditing has been mentioned. Copilot can be audited, but you can only get the username, date, and the time of the person that used Copilot. You cannot get any details of what they were using Copilot for unless we hire someone to custom design and configure Copilot to capture that information. This would be expensive and of limited use. Cheating has been mentioned. Copying other people's work is a problem when AI is used in schools and colleges. However, in town government, when it comes to town policies and ordinances, we all copy each other's work. and customize the content for our individual towns. North Star Planning, who wrote much of our current zoning ordinances, did not reinvent the wheel just for the town of Pownell. Their work is in other town ordinances, or the other town's ordinances are in their work. On the Moose Chatter CEO Forum, where many of the CEOs in Maine discuss zoning and ordinances, we often gladly share each other's work with each other. Pownell's short-term rental policy was created with the help from Freeport and a few other towns. Pownell's food truck policy was also a combination of simplification of other policies from other towns. None of this is cheating. It's taking the best from many ordinances and making them our own. So what problem are we trying to solve? The key problem with using AI is to make sure that the data we intake is fresh and accurate. AI makes a lot of mistakes. Even without AI, we make mistakes. That is why every document that we write is vetted by each other. Tim and I constantly bounce ideas and documents off of each other. I often ask Becky for her thoughts on documents that I create. Critical documents are further vetted by the town attorney and the select board. How well does this policy solve the problem, and what problems does it add? It does say that information generated by AI tools would be verified for accuracy. That is good, but we don't need a 4-page document to say that. Much of the draft policy is unenforceable or irrelevant and inaccurate. The second page that I gave you has a paragraph that we could add to our current personnel policy. We already have a section in that policy called computers and internet use. That paragraph or something very similar could be used as a substitute for a standalone policy. So whenever we think about adding a policy, ask ourselves, what problem does it solve? And it shouldn't be just a gut feeling or a feel-good problem. How well does it solve the problem? What new problems does it add? What are the costs, and is it worth it? Any questions?
Thank you, Bill.
Good.
Okay, so, any thoughts? So
I guess part of my thought would be finding out from the lawyers how well protected we are with what the town is putting out, and also are we making sure that all our employees are aware of potential consequences to them individually as well. Because I think we want to protect ourselves in the town, but we want to protect our employees as well.
we have a neighboring town, which one of our employees has had direct experience with, that is now in approaching a court hearing because they used generative AI to develop budget, and it came up with their budgetary process was broken anyway, but they came up with names that didn't coexist in their town. Just a nightmare. And I mean, it was a nightmare to me reading it from 40 miles away. How could you let that go by? Sometimes, no matter how much you cross-check, parse, things just fly under the radar in a hurry. So let's send this to the attorney and see how the attorney approaches it. Okay.
Yeah, I can echo what John said. I mean, it's amazing how inaccurate it can be. I've done quite a bit of work with it, where sometimes just basic 10 numbers, add these up, and it'll be off. I say something doesn't seem right. And I'll tell it the last digit was 30, and it'll say, oh, you're right. And it'll still come up with the exact same wrong answer I gave before. And I said, no, the answer should be 201. Oh, you're right. So you really got to vet the answers. Can make a lot of mistakes.
So I'm concerned if somebody was doing that work and wasn't as thorough as you are, that.
Oh, yes.
Consequences might be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
There's certainly a place in, as old as I am and as much of a curmudgeon as I am, I begrudgingly admit there's going to be a place for AI. I just want to make sure that we're protecting. Anyway, good. It's got a long way to go. We'll see where that goes. All right, next item is board committee bylaws update. Becky, it's all you.
Okay, so back in February of 2021, the select board adopted these bylaws for boards and committees. And as I was reading through, it was really missing a lot of information that could be helpful to boards and committees. So did a lot of updates. I was hoping to write a summary for you, and I apologize I didn't get time to do that. I can quickly go through the sections if you'd like.
Yeah, please do, Becky.
Absolutely. So section 200 duties, I just added the sentence that said the town clerk shall be notified after the appointment of the chair and vice chair. So typically after July 1, when committees meet, they re-elect, and I don't always get that information, so it's just asking for that. The request for direct assignments under section 2 is really a state statute about how staff can be directed in the front office. So that was just some editing there. I then went into section 3 meetings and kind of did some updates. So I'm not really sure what's going on with age-friendly Freeport Pownell. I think it's incorporated more into Freeport Community Services now, and there isn't, I don't know if there's regular meetings. So I've struck that one. The Budget Committee actually meets December to April. Capital Improvement is September to March/April. We're not doing comprehensive plan right now. Ordinance Review is still a committee, but not appointed, so there's not meetings. So those were those updates. In D, instead of just saying as required by law, I cited the actual statutes for posting and noticing of meetings. Under G, I did add in accordance with the town of Pownell's remote meeting policy, because we have a remote meeting policy. Again, cited the state statutes in H. Under J, I added correspondence because we have it, and I know that the planning board has added it, and it just might be a good idea. I added a K. I thought about this over the weekend, so this was an update this morning. We actually do need to put the location of the meeting on the agendas. That was my learn something new in the last couple of weeks, so I added that. And then under the select board emergency meetings, I added the personnel emergencies, because that can happen from time to time for the select board to need to call an executive session. So I added that as an option. And then I added a whole section 4, notice of meeting requirement. And this is really a guideline for boards and committees to just know how to send an agenda and give them that roadmap there. So that whole section kind of guides that. Now, the statute is very vague. The statute says that we must post an agenda in a reasonable amount of time. So we can define that. So I've set that at 4 days, because that's typically what we do for the select board. Did renumbering here through these next sections. And then I added this under new section 7, item E, just about when the appointments happen after the first select board meeting following July 1. Each board and committee member that has been appointed must take an oath prior to the first committee meeting. No member shall participate or vote in any matters if the member has not taken an oath. And we work really hard to get to all those first meetings and make sure that happens and try to make it easy on everybody. Added a section about meeting minutes, because it was missing a section about the minutes. So just what needs to go into the minutes and how to send them. And then some renumbering pretty much through the rest of it. And then under the planning board section, I aligned with the 4 calendar days as well for the meeting requirement. They had theirs at 5. And then it goes into Robert's rules, and I didn't do anything with that. So these were just some updates to help boards and committees, a little bit of a roadmap of just how to be and make it easier on both us and them.
Questions, comments from the board? 4 days is appropriate, because that's the number of days the office. That's why.
That's
We had 5 days before now.
a good point.
Kate, you want to move to put this in order?
I move that we approve the edits and revisions to the Town of Pownell bylaws for boards and committees.
George?
Second it.
Moved and seconded to approve the amendments to the Town of Pownell bylaw for board and committee. Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you, Becky. Good
Great.
job.
Thank you.
It'll make it easier, and we're gonna have to make sure that during we do the Civic 101, or if we have the meeting with the attorney, that everyone gets this and
Mhm.
go through it and say, look, this is only gonna make everyone's life easier. The number of times that we've gone down to look at select board minutes from 1986, and there they are, and the questions answered. It's a living document. Those minutes are living documents.
I asked Ben when he comes to do the FOIA training if he could take a few minutes to just touch upon agenda notice and minutes, because those are two key things for all of us, and just to have a minute of Q&A and information, I thought would be good and appropriate.
Just for my memory, when is he coming?
December 8th.
Pretty close to the fat man. All right, next item is the agenda software. I can't wait.
So kind of, touching on the bylaws, we've been testing, or I should say, I've been testing out this agenda software, and we've gotten some feedback from some residents. I'm just curious what the board thinks. We're ending our trial, so it's something that I'd like to consider adopting and moving forward with. But I'm really curious to hear the good and the bad about it from your point of view and how you're receiving it.
So far, I think it's great. I can open everything and see everything thoroughly, and that seems to be working really well. Remind me of the cost.
So right now for one login, it's $50 a month. I kind of have a future plan of wanting 3 logins, which would go to $100 a month, but that would be in next year's budget. So for the remainder of this fiscal year, we're looking at about $600.
George, thoughts?
Personally, I think it's money well spent. I've actually enjoyed receiving the agendas and being able to click all the links on my phone, like when I'm at work on lunch and reviewing documents that way. And hopefully if we can somewhere down the road move away from stacks and stacks of printed out paper and be able to just do things digitally, it'd be a little bit easier on some of us, I think, and be a better use of resources that the town purchases anyways with the amount of paper we limit on printing out.
There we go. I have a couple of, just 2 great people who said they have been able to access that. So let's start. I move that we approve expendings up to $600 on the agenda creating software. Use it as a trial to maybe expand so other committees can become more transparent in the future.
Second it.
Second, to approve up to $600 to purchase agenda software. Any further discussion?
Just to expand on that thought, I have plans to offer support from the office to the boards and committees with this software that I think will be managed. The time it saves me alone, I think it will be manageable, and then we'll have uniformity across the website, and we'll be ADA compliant as well, which has to be done by 2027. So I think the boards and committees will have to rewrite the bylaws again a little bit, but I think they'll be pretty excited when we roll out sort of that support from the board, from the office, sorry, as well with this.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right. Panel moves forward into the 21st century. Next item is impact.
Tim and I met with Ben Smith and Sam Pikus from North Star last week to just have a discussion about the impact fees, because we're trying to advance on those. And we had an interesting discussion when we're looking at the equation and the methodology. We're looking at shifting from recreation and open space to the public works and public safety. And we did find that down the road, if we ended up building a new building, we could actually use impact fees towards a bond payment if we ended up bonding. I thought that was pretty interesting. That could be changing that methodology and that equation is something we can get accomplished by June. So that's kind of the direction we've got. two comprehensive plans, a need assessment. We are potentially going to have site design pretty soon. We're exploring these other opportunities. We have the data that sort of builds that capital plan that we need. And I think that that's a good direction. Tim had some other thoughts for maybe the next year in changing, maybe not using bedrooms, or maybe we do allocate some towards an RSU. So we have a new subcategory and we can use that money towards any of the bond payments. That's our portion, through the RSU to help offset some of those costs that are incurring right now. So we felt like we had a little bit of a step forward in the meeting last week. I wanted to bring back the discussion a little bit, and we've kind of instructed Ben to shift to the Public Works and Public Safety and change the methodology and equation to capturing more money in those two categories and less in the open space and recreation, where we don't have capital plans in place to purchase more land right now or expand on trails and things like that. And we can always shift later. They have to be reviewed every 5 years. So the time scope works too. If it turns out that the future facilities doesn't move forward, then we would be in that time frame of reviewing it, and then maybe we change it again. But it was just kind of an update coming out of our meeting last week.
Comments? Okay, thank you. All right, is there any other new business? Great. Any old business we brought forward? Any correspondence?
I did include some in your packet. This was, there's a new a Pownell community page that has been started by a resident. And there was an excerpt in there about the fire department's response to an emergency they had. And Jesse asked me to include that in tonight's meeting.
Any correspondence to the other select board members? I am going to, I don't know how to say it, but it's a RSU 5 committee meeting concerning early education intervention for children ages 3 to 5. That's Thursday night. You can pay me later for that one. Also been up to Augusta twice last week. And at the Department of Environmental Protection, 2 days on 2 different discussions, which I'll need to speak about in executive session, but I need to say that it's their correspondence. Had a couple of really interesting phone calls on the new cell phone that I have. So I've had fewer phone calls on my home phone. And the bear has been sighted again. There you go. For correspondence. Is there any other business? Kate.
I have a question. Is there a future facilities committee site walk? I feel like I saw something about that.
I believe that's still scheduled for tomorrow. I would have to reach out to the board and verify, but I believe that was still the plan. Nothing had changed on the date, so.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it was like 10 a.m. if I recall correctly, but I can review the minutes and get back to you on that.
I haven't been notified that there's any change, so I'm pretty certain it's tomorrow. Yes, that's on the RFP.
Okay. If there's no other business, then I'm going to move that we enter executive session per 1 MRSA 405 6E legal matters. Thank you guys for attending. Thank you. I didn't catch your name.